It's the run to the line. Workman's off the track. He's got all 4 Michelins over the white line. He's defending.
Everything interesting happens off the racing line.
All right, Mike, we are back, and I am stoked about this episode today.
I understand that. This is our the first guest challenge that we actually had somebody answer the call.
Yeah, that's actually very, very true. So get this. Drug runner turned race car driver turned DEA informant.
I don't think anybody's turning off this episode.
We got a show for just about everybody. So let's jump right into it. Our guest today isn't just a race car driver. He was also one of South Florida's biggest drug runners in the 1980s. He spent his weekends on the racetrack and his weekdays moving tons of marijuana and cocaine. And he wasn't alone. Back then, IMSA and tracks like Road Atlanta in mid-Ohio were filled with racers bankrolled by drug smuggling money. This sounds like a Hollywood show, right? His name is Ken Behr, and he's here to share the untold story of how fast cars and drug money built an entire era of American motorsport. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me.
I am
Jeez,
so
that sounds horrible.
Oh, it's going to get worse.
No,
And you know this.
geez.
I don't think we've ever gotten any further off the racing line than this.
Yeah, I was thinking about the title. We are off the racing
Yes,
line.
like you are the perfect guest. First off, I read the book.
Thank you.
Your book.
Thank you.
One Step Over the Line. It was actually a very good read. It was a lot of I think a roller coaster as far as emotions. You really did a great job in putting the reader into certain aspects of the stuff that you've lived, and I appreciate that.
Thanks for saying that. It was a 7-year project, so
Really?
yeah, it's not easy to write a book. It's easy to write a book. It's hard to finish a book. So that was the trick. Finally saying, okay, I'm done. Let's do it. So
Yeah. No, I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah. So let's jump into it. You weren't some small-time dealer. You moved like literally tons of marijuana and cocaine.
Tons.
Yeah.
Cocaine, I moved, I wouldn't say tons, but over,
Hundreds of
well,
pounds.
I'd say probably over 500 or 700 kilos, at least.
Yeah.
Over 1,000 pounds.
That's already
1,000 pounds more than Carlos or I have.
I have ever seen.
Well, it turns out when you're partying at your house and you have 10 kilos in the bedroom, you never run out. You never run out.
All right, so
you got to know how to say no.
Can you take us into one of those runs, the makeshift runways, the glow stick drops in the ocean? What was that actually like?
So, what we would do is obviously you have to make if you're going to land a load of drugs, you either have to do it in a commercial airport, which in the very beginning people might get away with, but in the end you couldn't. So you either have to build a runway, a clandestine runway with lights and everything in the middle of a dark, desolate area.
Right.
Or in the beginning, what they used to do is they would fly in with the bales and put Calium glow sticks on them, strap those to the bales, and then throw them out in the ocean, and then people would come up with boats and pick them up and bring them in through the Fort Lauderdale Cut or Miami Cut. And that's why when I was a kid, it was not unusual to find bales of marijuana on the beach or kilos. It's happening again now with Coke. There's a lot of Coke smuggling. But yeah, you would actually find floaters or square groupers.
Yes, I was just going to say, hence the term square grouper.
And I actually had a guy that was a fisherman that would go sports fishing. He was a charter boat captain and first mate. And when they found a floater or a square grouper, they'd bring it to me and I would clean it up and sell it. So, yeah.
Nice.
But I'll give you an example of one night what we did. So we had a road in the middle of nowhere in Florida, and there's a lot of roads in the middle of nowhere in Florida, and there's a lot of flat land in Florida, so you can really land anywhere. We're also the closest land from Colombia. It's 1,500 miles from Colombia to Florida, and it's about 600 miles from Jamaica to Florida. So that's why Colombia became the big waypoint, right? The original smugglers smuggled stuff in from Mexico, weed from Mexico, and they'd either drive through the border or come through the Rio Grande. But Mexican marijuana wasn't very good, and so somebody got, actually one of my other friends, Tommy Powell, started smuggling weed out of Colombia in the early 70s. And so this one night, what we did was we had a load of 300 kilos of cocaine coming in. One of my friends was bringing in. He asked me if I would help him do the offload. And I normally didn't like doing that stuff because you don't have control of your future. It's a 15-year minimum mandatory sentence. But I was racing cars, and I could make 20 grand for one night, and a good weekend of racing was 6 grand, and if I didn't wreck the car.
Right.
So, you're talking about expensive formula cars and, and flying there and transport the car and all that. So, and I raced in the Midwest. I didn't race in Florida for some reason that we won't get into. That's where I landed. So I was Road America, Mid-Ohio, Watkins Glen, and so I had to fly to every track, and the car was brought there. So anyhow, that night he was coming in from Columbia. We set up in the dark of some road in the Everglades. When we heard the plane was coming, we had radios and stuff, and we all had M16s, hand grenades. We had a friend of ours that was an Army Special Ranger, so my friends traded cocaine for lost rockets, hand grenades, and cocaine they mailed it. One of my friends got busted with a bunch of the stuff in his house. But anyway, we were fully armed. The plane's coming in, and once we heard the, click, 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 and then
Over the radio.
Yeah, of our radios, click, 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 click. We had a code to let all the guys, we were stationed around this, couple 1,000 feet area where the plane would land. We ran out. We took Calium glow sticks again. I had them on fishing lines. We broke them. Me and my other friend, we ran to the middle of the road, dropped the glow sticks, and then on the sides of the road, we put these things called Fireflies, which are on 9-volt batteries, super bright. And this is in the 80s, so these things were probably, the technology's, not that advanced today, but back then they were. And basically, by the time I turned around, we had a runway. As a matter of fact, the pilot turned to the co-pilot. He told me after the fact and said, "Look, it's MIA, which is Miami Internet, and I know effing customs." And we land the plane. I ran up, grabbed the load car, backed it up. We threw the 300 kilos in the car. I always have 2 cars. One that's a ramming car in case somebody tries to pull the other guy over, and we just blasted out of there. And then we made the pilot, the co-pilot, and the ground crew wait until we got out of the area because you can't take off a twin-engine plane in the middle of the night and people don't hear it.
Right.
Right. So that was one, and so people understand that just takes minutes. Like another time, a friend of mine decided that we were going to bring in 1,100 pounds, and they decided to bring it into St. Pete Airport, which I thought was crazy. I was telling guys, but that was their deal. I said, all right, I'll help you with the offload and transportation and sale of the product. So they bring it into St. Pete Airport, and I'm sitting in a hotel room with a pair of binoculars and a walkie-talkie, and the bird's coming in. We get confirmation from the pilot. All the ground crew starts getting the radios and then I get the DEA and customs followed the plane in. The guys had unloaded the plane in less than 3. So 1,100 pounds, and I'm not the only guy that'll say this. You talk to any smuggler, you can unload 1,100 pounds in about 3 minutes or 4 minutes. Your adrenaline, they're 50 to, let's say those were Jamaican bales, so they'd be a little smart. Colombian bales are 50 pounds a piece, usually 45 to 50. When that's happening, you're throwing those things. I remember throwing one so hard, like a 300-pound guy. He goes, oh! I look over, I see him laying on the ground holding the bale. I mean, you're just jacked.
Yeah.
And so they unloaded the plane in like 3 or 4 minutes. The cops came in. They jumped in a 240 Volvo. It's the pilot's car, a Volvo 240 that doesn't do over 80 miles an hour, right? Remember, they made him and goes blasting down the front of the road there. And I'm looking through the window, and I see the Volvo coming, and every time it hits a cross section, it goes airborne. Oh. Right? And then 5 cop cars are just going up in the air. And so and sparks are flying. I look down through the window of the hotel, and I see my friend Lee trying to get out of the passenger door as the cops are, and I'm thinking, don't do that, buddy.
Yeah, that's not going to end well.
And literally that night, they chased the car. Lee did get out of the passenger car, and they chased the passenger car. The pilot, who was my best friend's uncle, he's a 65-year-old guy. So I'm 68, so think about it. Uncle Ralph just flew almost 24 hours. He flew from St. Pete down to like Haiti, get fuel, come from Haiti, go to Jamaica, from Jamaica fly back. Ballsy guy. Never did a drug run in his life.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a funny story. So they had the pickup truck with the weed in it. All the cops chased the Volvo. Uncle Ralph's sitting there going, well, I got no way to get out of here. Didn't really know any better, so he jumped in the pickup truck and left. So when we had another hotel outside of town where the crew, we had guys. We all met there. We get a phone call. It's Uncle Ralph. Come get the weed. I got away. So that's a story in my book, but it's a little more complex. But yeah, those are 2 trips that, and I want to clarify, I was a drug runner. I more moved, once people brought it into America, I was the guy that was going to sell it. I was the guy that was going to move it across the country. If you brought in a load of 40,000 pounds, I'd be one of the people you were going to call. I didn't really love smuggling because I could make a lot of money doing what I was doing. And smuggling, you can make millions and millions of dollars, but you don't have control of your, anything can happen, right? Uncle Ralph has customs. Having said that, I added it up. I've been involved in 12 smuggling trips. So for a guy that didn't like smuggling, somehow I got into it. When I was a kid, I worked for one of the biggest smuggling organizations in the world, in Florida, but he's in Time magazine. There have been books written about him. And my job was to take some money and fly it to the Cayman Islands. I was like 18, 19 years old, and they would give me a couple $1 million, a suitcase and a Learjet, and go, kid, take this to the Cayman Islands.
That's nuts.
Right. And one time we get in, it's me and my girlfriend, and the guy, this is a funny story, he breaks out a bottle of Dom Perignon. It's like 8:39. And by 19, I drank a lot of Dom, right? But like I'm a kid, I go, do you have any chocolate chip cookies and milk? Like, I don't,
Yeah.
And when you said you actually flew the plane?
No, the pilot.
Okay, I was going to say.
We used
all
to
right.
use a guy named Harvey Hopp. He was the most experienced Learjet pilot in the world. He helped, he was a fighter pilot. He was he helped test pilot the Learjets. He flew the astronauts. He flew Reagan. He flew the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra. And he flew us in the money. And you know what? We used to pay him in cash. And I remember saying to my boss one time when we were all together, I go, where's he going? He goes, to the bank to put the money in the bank. Harvey's not declaring this money. So everybody, you have to understand when people look at me now and they look at the world around us. I moved to Florida in 1973. My mother moved us from New Orleans to get away from the drugs.
Right. How'd that work out?
I was like, Palo Alto would have been better. I'd be like Bill Gates right now, but yeah.
So I read that part in your book, and I found it ironic that in order for your mom to get you out of, the drugs in New Orleans, she actually landed you in the epicenter of the drug world in
She didn't do
Florida.
very much research.
No,
there,
I was going to say
apparently
she didn't
not.
read the
Right,
newspaper now. Well, she was from New York. My family had business in New Orleans that my father had passed away when I was 13, which is another reason why these things happen, lack of guidance, right?
Right.
And like I said to you earlier, I failed first grade, so I had trouble in school. And that's how kids get sidetracked. But in South Florida, it was everywhere. I mean, everywhere. I have 2 friends that met on Hollywood Beach with their mother's tea strainers because bales had exploded on the beach. So they were pulling buds out of the beach, and that's how they met each other. Because a lot of times we would throw the bales out because you're being chased by the police. So some bales are meant to fly out of the plane. Some were never planned. So when they hit the ground, they just explode.
Right.
They're not packaged that way.
You remarked in the book that you did a 300-kilo cocaine offload.
That was the one I talked about, yeah.
Not necessarily for the money, but for the adrenaline rush.
It was, yeah, because I had money. I just said, all my friends were doing it, so you go, oh,
Yeah.
Bill and Bob are doing it, I should too, but it was for the adrenaline. It was for a lot. I've talked to a lot of smugglers. I have a lot of friends that are, old-time smugglers, and a lot of it was just for the lifestyle and for the excitement.
Yeah. I have a confession to make. When I was a teenager, I used to do some stupid stuff. And when I read that part in your book, it reminded me of some of the stupid stuff that I did as a teenager. We used to, like my friends and I, used to break into cars. I came from a good family. Yep. I didn't need anything in that car. It was the rush of like possibly getting caught, of getting chased. Like it was such a rush.
That's what most shoplifting is. People don't need the product. They're just, unless you're a professional shoplifter, it's for the rush.
Yeah.
Want to drive on a real racetrack but don't have a car? Velocity Track Experience offers track-ready car rentals for HPDE and racing. Whether you're flying in from out of state, out of the country, or you want full track support without worrying about prep, maintenance, or transport, this is your arrive and drive solution. From an agile Mazda MX-5 to a fully prepped BMW race car, Velocity provides everything you need to hit the track with confidence, including expert support and optional coaching. Just book your favorite track car, show up, and drive. Go to velocitytrackexperience.com and start your track adventure today.
So that brings us into the world of racing,
Yeah,
right?
I love racing.
So, racing and the money behind it. While this was all happening, you were also racing cars.
Yep.
Spending tens of thousands of dollars a weekend. And this is back in the 80s. You're talking about $6,000 to $10,000. It's probably, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 in today's money.
Exactly.
This was all funded in cash.
Yeah, I mean, stacks of cash.
Yeah. Tell us about that side of that life. What were you driving? How did the money flow from one world to the other?
So here's the funny thing. I went to Skip Barber, and I didn't know any better. I broke my leg on my jet ski. I sat on the couch for 6 months, like what I like to call as a pot and opiate induced. I was taking pills because the doctor prescribed. I had a broken leg, and I kept reading car magazines. When I get out of this, I'm going to go to Skip Barber, and I paid for it in cash. I walked up. It was $2,200, I think, or $2,400, and I just walked up. I was at Sebring, and I handed them the cash. And then when I started racing bigger and faster cars, I was renting the rides because I didn't have my own. I bought my own race car at one point, and I just walk up and go, "Here, guys, what are you for the weekend?" I go, $5,500. Here's $5,500. And like you said, to put things in perspective, that's like $15,000 today,
Right.
Or more. And what people say is they'll ask me, "How much money did you make selling drugs?" And I always say is, if I told, I wasn't, making hundreds of millions, but pretend like you're a really high-priced doctor or a really, really high-priced lawyer. I was making that kind of money in cash, and I wasn't doing that kind of work, So,
Right.
You're a 20-something-year-old kid. You're riding jet skis, going snow skiing, going racing.
It's not going in the bank.
No, one time my girlfriend called me up and she was pissed because she got into the house and I left $80,000 in cash in a Publix bag. I forgot about it. Another time somebody we needed a light bulb, and he goes, the light bulbs are under the cabinet right there. He pulls out $10,000. I go, oh shit.
Yeah.
More than I care to mention how many times I found $10,000 in some place I forgot about, So plenty of money.
In the book, you implicated several big names in association with drug smugglers of that era, including, and I don't know, you probably don't know this, it blew my mind when I read this part, including IMSA, Road Atlanta, and a few others. What was the ongoing joke about what IMSA really stood for?
So supposedly Richard Petty said this. IMSA was the International Motorsports Association, was really coined the term the International Marijuana Smuggling Association.
It was that bad.
It was everywhere. Marty Hines, Randy Lanier, the Whittingtons, John Paul Jr., John Paul Sr. So if you don't, Randy Lanier had owned Road Atlanta. I think so did the Whittingtons. They were like partners in it. And what they did was you could land a plane on the backstretch. So they just used it as part of their, if you could, now you had to have extra fuel to get to Atlanta. But I know so many people that race cars. What about not NASCAR? Gary Ballou, he was into racing. Those are guys you may not know the name of, but there were so many guys that it was the same mentality. You're adrenaline junkie. When I was a kid, I wanted to do three things. I didn't want to be a fireman. I didn't want to be a policeman. I was 5 years old. I wanted to be a cowboy because I grew up on a farm in those days of old westerns. I wanted to be a secret agent like James Bond, who had a wetsuit that turned into a tuxedo, and I wanted to race cars, and I got to do all three, kinda.
Yeah. That's actually kind of cool. You didn't. One of the funny things that I read in the book, again, and I'm going to keep referring to the book.
Fine.
You didn't even try to hide it, which is one of the hilarious parts of it. His bail bond was
one of my sponsors.
One of the sponsors on the car.
Yeah, and it was me and a friend of mine, and another friend of mine. His dad was a smuggler, and the kid was not, and he was like a little upset about it. I go, what the hell, and he was on my car. So I'll tell the story. One time we're doing a practice day at Mid-Ohio, and I'm in a little Formula Ford, red Formula Ford Skip Barber car. That was in the beginning. And Mario Andretti's behind me in his red, Lola, Beatrice Foods Lola, on the pit road. And we're both, wah, 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 and I'm not, he is, And Smuggler's Blues is playing on the loudspeaker.
Yes, I remember that in the book.
And one of the guys sticks his head in the car and he goes, Kenny, you were really fast out there today. And he goes, but then all you guys from Florida are fast.
Wink, wink.
And that's when I realized I was fooling nobody. I'm paying in cash.
But you weren't the only one, though.
No, obviously not. I mean, Randy Lanier was racing Indy cars and was the 1984, I think it was, IMSA champion. And he beat Porsche, Jaguar, Ferrari. And they're trying to say he had more money than them.
Yeah.
He didn't have more money. He didn't have more money, but he had hundreds of millions of dollars in those days.
Yeah.
So Andy was quick. He had him and I think Bill Whittington in the car, if anybody remembers IMSA back in 1984. He won the IMSA championship in a march with Chevy Power. And literally there were little warehouses in Hollywood that had like the body work. I mean, it wasn't like a factory deal. But he hired the good people, and Randy's a fast driver. Did 27 years in jail. But
and from what I read in your book, you were also not too bad yourself.
No, I did all right. I wish I had more seat time, but I did good. I won a couple races. I kept up with the guys. Once you climb the ladder and you're in, I was racing with Tony George.
You're doing open wheel.
Yeah, I did
all open wheel.
I did Sports 2000, which is kind of like a Can-Am car with a smaller engine.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, there were guys that took the Sports 2000 chassis, just put a V8 in it. But I raced in that, had small. But I was racing with Tony George, whose family owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Colin Truman, whose father owned all the Red Roofs, Inns America, Mid-Ohio Racetrack, and Bobby Rahals, winning IndyCar at that time. So when your godfather is A.J. Foyt, which Tony George is godfather, and your driving instructor is Bobby Rahal, and your dad owns the racetrack you're racing at, you're competing with the guys that grew up in it, right?
Yeah.
Todd Brayton, Scott Brayton's brother, I bought a car from him. Scott Brayton had the Indy 500 track record. He died at Indy in a bad accident. Benton House was with us for a minute. John Cock, I used to race with Gordon John Cox. He won Indy twice, his nephew. So the Midwest, that's why I went there. That's where all the talent was. John, what's his last name? I can't think. He won the GTU championship. There was a lot of great drivers. So I wanted to keep up with them, but they were generational drivers.
Right.
It's kind of hard when your dad's showing you the ropes.
And you just showed up, and here I am.
With a wad of cash, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
That
He did have
hurt.
Skip
Right.
Barber under his belt.
Yeah, I did.
Right. 2 days to Skip Barber, and
Well, I went through 2 days to Skip Barber. I went to the advanced class. I did the Skip Barber Pro Racing Series. They called the Pro Series, which I raced at Miami Grand Prix the second year they had it. We were backup series. Then I went to Formula Ford Regional. Then I went to Formula Ford, what they call Pro, which was national. Then I did the Sports 2000 Pro Series, which again was the top series for pro.
How long did you race for?
About 5 years, I bet it was. Yeah, about 5 years.
sounds like you crammed a lot into those 5 years.
Yeah.
Crammed a lot into your life.
Right.
Yeah.
And this was happening concurrently to you spending time in the Everglades.
Yeah. Yeah. Unloading boats. I remember one time we had a boat in Lantana, and the guy called us up and goes, "Look, I need you guys to offload it for us. It's at a dock." So me and my friend Big Jeff, a big 300-pound guy, good guy to bring along, and I guess they stalled it one night. So we went out that night and went to a restaurant. We ordered every appetizer on the menu, because when you're a drug smuggler, drug runner, you don't give a shit. I mean, you're just spending money. What would you like, sir? Give me the Chateaubriand for 2 and every appetizer on the menu.
Yeah.
I didn't care. And we slept in, so we got to the offload a little late, and we get to the marina, and the boat's sitting inside like this. The marina's not there anymore, like in an area where they had boats on dry land. And me and Jeff, now it's broad fucking daylight, sorry. And we're unloading the boat, and a guy's driving by in the car, and his kids, and they're walking along, and he sees us, and he kind of pulls the kid away.
Yeah.
And we go to pull out with the pickup truck and this chase car, and the guy that owned the marina was talking to customs, customs had come on the property, and the guy knew we were offloading the boat because he was part of the deal.
Yeah.
So he stalled them when we drive by, and we're kind of like, hey, and then we loaded that into my house. Here's a funny story. So we had that in the house, and I'm driving down Griffin Road, and I see an old girl I know from high school that I dated. This is how lax it was back then. So I pick her up. I go, hey, what are you doing? Hey, you want to go have a beer and smoke some joints? She goes, sure. So I take her back to the house, right? I want to try rekindle something.
Yeah.
And she walks in the house, and there's the bales piled up in the living room. And she goes, oh, you guys got a lot of bales here tonight. I go, yeah. And my friend Big Jeff goes, what are you doing? She's a local chick. She's cool.
It was that prominent.
Yeah. I mean, she just looked at it, and we went in the bedroom, and
Crazy.
I didn't get lucky that night, but
That's
I
unfortunate.
also didn't get busted. So
That's also good.
Yeah, well, so that's a couple stories of how prevalent it was.
Back to the racing world.
Yeah, sorry.
How was it like then compared to now?
Well, I don't know that much now, because I think now one of the things that we have in the racing world is what you guys do, where people can come with their street cars and take them out on a racetrack, put somebody like you or me in the car next to them, and say, hey, brake hard, turn left, and we can teach someone how to drive a race car, but they're in their street car. And I don't want to piss anybody off, but I don't give a crap. Race cars don't have fenders. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
That's an argument me and Rennie always have. But when you drive a purpose-built formula car, and then even if you get in a Porsche or something, and they're incredible cars today, they really are. But the feel in a formula car, purpose-built race car.
Yeah.
When you're going into an apex and you want to hit that apex just right, and you can watch that tire just touch the inside of the apex, it's a lot easier. Not easier, but it's a lot, it's a lot more visceral. It's a lot more input. And then when you're coming, I remember driving on street courses like Miami Grand Prix, and just going flat out through one of the turns, and then just feeding the car out. And you're watching that tire just cross the white line, but miss the concrete barrier. And every time you're doing it, you're like, okay, come in. I don't have to. When you're driving, people think it looks easy on TV.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't have to tell you if you've ever been in a race car. It takes a certain talent, and there's a white knuckle turns, right? Road America, the kink.
Yeah.
You're going into the kink. You're just like, you go through the carousel. The car's up in the air. It's doing its rotation. You flat out through the carousel. You get to the kink. If you lift, you're going to be slow all the way down the straightaway. So you just got to just, bam. But the advantage to people learning today is telemetry. I didn't have the computers. If I would have had the computers and be able to sit back and go over the data and tell somebody where you braked a little soft or where you could, I think I would have been so much farther along.
Yeah.
That would have got me over the hump of not having the experience that people like Tony George and all the guys that own their own racetracks had, and had uncles that are AJ Foyt, and So I do think it's great for the average person today to go out on a racetrack with their street car, and they know their street car. Right? They're in their car all day long. It gives a lot of help there. And if you can get the telemetry in there, you can really learn so much faster, I think.
Yeah.
Really and truly, I wish I had it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you lived on adrenaline for decades.
Yeah.
Flying, racing, running, risking everything.
Yeah.
What happens when that suddenly stops? Was it hard to come down from that pace?
Well, the first time I got busted in 1988, we had 40,000 pounds stuck in Canada that we were trying to smuggle back into America. So we had used a seaplane. We smuggled it in on lakes, and I got busted. I ended up in one of the worst prisons in America for a couple of weeks. And then I was actually had to keep running drugs to pay for the lawyers. So it never shut off.
While you were in jail?
When I was on bond.
Right.
I was literally, at some points, my other friend had smuggled in a bunch of coke and had it in D.C. I was literally going in my suit that I was wearing to court, which, by the way, the first time I got busted, I didn't know how to make a tie. Like I wasn't part of the working world. I was 30-something years old. I never made a tie. So I kept going. So I didn't let go. Even after getting busted, I kept going for the adrenaline, the money. The second time I got busted, I'd just gotten married 4 weeks earlier. I had a 1.5-year-old daughter, and man, the world came to an end. It stopped. And
Everything just slowed down for him.
but by that time, I'd already stopped racing a couple years earlier, and I think you just get to a point where you're just burned out. You know, everybody wanted to quit. My partner in Ohio wanted to quit, who used to race cars with me for a while. We just, after 20 years.
That's
Yeah.
a tough pace to keep up for that long.
Yeah.
Not just the racing, but the smuggling.
Yeah.
And being, chased literally
You're
by
constantly-
the DEA.
Yeah, you're constantly looking out the window. You don't, it's funny, nobody ever asked me that question. And going back that time, I was in such, and by the way, so right after I got busted, and the racing had stopped just a couple years earlier, and then I had to go work for the DEA. So I really I was 2 more years into such a high pressure cooker, because now I'm looking at 25 years. And you'll see people say, oh, he's a snitch, he's a rat. And I get it, but you don't understand till you're wearing my moccasins and you're looking at 25 years and you have a newborn baby and a wife. But it's beyond that. I realized that it's somewhat, when you're a kid and if you knock down the vase and you and your brother or your sister go, don't tell mom, or I remember being in like 5th grade and got in trouble with a kid, and we go to the principal's office and we agree not to tell at all, just to keep our mouths shut. Then all of a sudden the kid starts ratting me out and lying. So I understand how people feel, and you see the movies on TV, the rats get stitched, snitches get stitches, but that's not the reality. The reality is, by the time I got busted, the second time, the world had changed.
Yeah.
And a guy pulled me aside and said, listen, in jail, he goes, I just did 15 years in jail. I have not seen my daughter in 15 years. My daughter was your daughter's age. He goes, the morals and values you're clinging to died a lifetime ago. You better make a deal. And lawyers all told me to make a deal, so I made the deal.
You also grew up without your dad.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that was crossing your mind as well. You didn't want to see your kid grow up without you.
Yeah, and I didn't want to do 25 years.
That too.
But my daughter and my wife at the time, my first wife, was not stable. I didn't, I didn't have that support either to say, don't worry, I'll be. A lot of times what happens is, and I've seen it happen over and over, when the cocaine, the limos, the private planes, and the parties are going, and the jet skis, and everything's good. But when the shit hits the fan, no woman's going to wait for you, 20 years. And your friends I have an expression I say, when you dance at the party. But when you walk alone. Nobody calls you. Nobody takes your calls. More likely you're going to get hit in the head with a shoe on the way out the door. Everybody turns their back on you. Not in my case, 1 or 2 friends stayed with me. But when you're also, but the life of being in the DEA and being undercover is, man, it's really intense, because you have the sword of Damocles hanging over your head.
Yeah.
If you don't produce, you're going to get out. You're not going to be in the program. Think about it. You get away with it forever and ever and ever. But when the government gets their hands on you, now you're in their ballpark. You're on their racetrack, and they know what to do to manipulate you and control you. But I'll say this, I never was asked to or would have ratted out any of my own friends. I did not. I did 1 or 2 people that I indirectly knew, and most of it was them putting me into cases. Like, we want you to go into here, do this, do that, which I would do. They asked me to proffer myself at one point, which was to put proffer means you're going to write down everything you ever did with everybody you ever did. And if you leave something out, everything can be used against you in a court of law. But if you don't leave anything out, nothing can be used against you in a court of law. Of course, you'll never remember everything. And then you'll have to testify or turn in anybody on that sheet. And I just said, I ain't doing that. I told my DEA handler, I said, listen, I grew up in this town, Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale. I go, every one of my friends, I'm not going to go to jail, leave my wife and my daughter alone, and turn in my friends from high school. I'm just not doing it.
Right.
And he was like such a cool guy. He goes, care for a steak? I go, yeah. He goes, come on. So we go across the street to Chuck's Steakhouse on 17th Street Causeway. This is how intense this is. And he goes, we're going to sit at this table right here. I remember he pulled out the pen and paper. He goes, in the hotel room, he goes, my bosses want you to proffer yourself. And I just said, I didn't know. And he goes, I knew he hated paperwork. So he puts the pen down. I guess. So we're sitting in the steak restaurant. He goes, you sit here. Okay, I'll sit here. And we're eating dinner. I said, DEA bought me a steak.
Yeah.
Nice. He goes, and he's a big guy. He goes, look over my shoulder. I said, yeah. He goes, see the guy at the bar in the black leather jacket? I go, yeah. He goes, and he has this deep voice. He goes, I'm going to walk out of here, and once I clear the door, you're going to walk up to him and talk drug deal and see what you can do. Tell him Captain Bobby sent you, and that was his undercover name, Captain Bobby. I go, you want me to get up and walk over and talk to some stranger drug deal? He goes, when I leave, you see me go through the door, I want you to get up. So I did. I sat down with the guy. I said, hey, Captain Bobby sent me, and we started talking, and I'm looking around the room for see if he's got any backup. He's wearing a leather jacket, so I'm thinking, and he's talking drug deal with me and smuggling, and I started thinking to myself, you know what? I bet this guy's wired. I bet you this guy's working for the customs or something like that, because why is he wearing a leather jacket,
Right.
I mean, it's Florida, he looked good. He looked like something out of a Martin Scorsese movie, like jet black hair, red shirt. I mean, it's like, out of New York City or something, but that's the kind of intensity,
Yeah.
I was like, shit. And then every time we busted somebody, I have to be debriefed. And so I'll give you an example of what something would look like for them real quick. You would have a tape. Sent me out to buy a tape recorder. I had the little tape recorder you could ever buy, a mic, and let's say I had somebody I was trying to work. I would go to a payphone, because that's what we did back then. We had payphones, with a bag of quarters, call somebody, and then I would say, before the person picks up the phone, I say, all right, I'm calling Bill so-and-so about doing a 300-pound, deal or smuggling trip, and I have to say, it's Tuesday, December 4th, 1992, at 3:35. I'm calling from payphone number blah, blah, blah. Call starts at 2:52. Then I make the phone call, then we talk, I record everything. Then when the guy hangs up, I go, phone call over, time, 3:05. You have to do that because they prove that the tape wasn't manipulated. And those are the kind of things. You have to save all the tapes. I actually have the DEA cassettes still, because then I had to take the MIDI cassettes, transfer it to the normal cassettes, and then mail them up to the DEA or give them to my handler.
Why did you keep those?
They're blank. Well, I saved everything. I save everything. I tell you what, I think one of the reasons I save everything is, I think when you have your life upended by losing my house, my grandfather died at 12, who was so close to me. My dad died at 13. My house burned down at like 14. I didn't have a car yet, 14 in New Orleans. Moved to Florida. So I have I think I'm hanging on to everything.
Right.
And that's why I actually saved a lot of the stuff from all those days.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
In the book, you mentioned your wife and kids several times. What was it like for them through this phase? When you're still working, I guess, with the DEA. And what was it like afterward? Them learning like what it is that dad does or did.
So my first wife, while I was out on bond, she got pregnant again. So now I'm looking at jail time, and I have a 1.5-year-old and a son being born. So the pressure to working for the DEA, and it destroyed our marriage. I mean, we've been married 4 weeks when I got busted.
Oh.
Literally, I went on my honeymoon, came back from my honeymoon. I got married July 18th. I said to my wife, I just spent $40,000 on a wedding, a honeymoon. I had, that's a lot of money. It's like those days, like 100 and something grand.
Yeah.
So, baby, I got to go back to work. And she said to me, she came from simple. She was, a poor girl growing up. She goes, listen, we're married. We have a daughter. Please don't go. You'll get a job. I'll get a job. We'll eat peanut butter and sandwiches. Don't go. And I just looked at her and said, I got to go. I got to make another run. And at that time, we had slowed down. We weren't moving thousands of pounds anymore. We were moving higher grade weed, slower, but we're still making a good living doing it. It wasn't the go-go days. And I went and I got busted, and it just destroyed my marriage. I mean, we stayed married for another 10 years, but it was a mess.
After that.
Yeah, and then what happened was my ex-wife got a bunch of surgeries. I was working selling cars. So then I became a car salesman because who else would hire a convicted felon? And I worked 10 hours. I just had to prove to myself and the world that I could do it legitimately.
Right.
And I had two kids and a wife to pay for. And I worked my ass off night and day to become the #1 salesman in the store. I was the top salesman at the store for 8 years in a row. I mean, which, if you look back, says, Kenny, you never should have sold drugs. You could have done it legitimately. But I had to be the best at, and everything just destroyed me. And finally, she got hooked on Oxycontins. Remember when all those pill mills? She got hooked on that and left me to raise my 2 kids at 8 and 12. So I always say that learning to multitask, to raise 2 kids by yourself, which is 2 different breakfasts, getting 2 kids to 2 different breakfasts, 2 different lunches in 2 different schools before 8 o'clock in the morning. I used to be up at 5 in the morning. I would, to get, the laundry done. And I think that running drugs gave me the wherewithal, the multitasking.
Right.
Like when you're running drugs and you got 5 cars on the road and phone calls and people and landings and this and that, you learn to multitask. So I think that helped me in that respect.
Well, I think also kind of bringing it back to, racing and driving on the track, you're used to seeing things so quickly, come at you so quickly, that when you go on the street on 95, everything just slows down.
Oh, you ever leave the racetrack and you got some old lady in a car and you dive in and you cut her off and you go underneath her, you're like, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? It's like, right? You leave the track and
No, Ken, I have never done that.
Oh, stop. Yeah, you leave the track and you're just like, oh fuck, pardon me. Oh, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm diving into turn 1 here and I just drove somebody's,
Well, I mean, we talked about the whole adrenaline rush, right? And for me, speaking personally, one of the things that I get so much enjoyment out of going to the racetrack is that I get that adrenaline rush, and I get it out of my system. That sort of sense that I could be in danger, and it wakes me up. So when I go back on the street on 95 and I'm going back home and I'm towing my car, I'm one of the slowest ones on the street.
All right, so I'll tell you a story. The other day, me and Rennie, we play bar trivia every Tuesday night, right, in Boca. And so I come down the turnpike and I got one of my BMWs. I got like 5 cars. Of course, because I'm a car guy, so I have 5 old cars that are missing something in every car. Like the front seat. My wife goes, when are you going to put the passenger seat back in your BMW? She doesn't know it's an M3 convertible with a 6-speed,
Yeah.
But I put the passenger seat back in. We can go for, it's been like that for 2 years. But you can put a tire in the front seat.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes, of course. You get your priorities straight, right?
Go to a tire rack and pick up a tire, just throw it right in the passenger area. So this is not this Tuesday, but the Tuesday before, and I just had a lot on my mind, and I'm like, I have a BMW E90, which was the last. I have an E46 M3, I have an 01 540 M Sport, and I have a Mazda RX-7 Gen 3. So I've got that. I've got an E30 with an S52 M3 engine that my son and I own, and it's full. Rennie does all this. Rennie at Redline BMW.
Pompano Beach, Florida.
My bestie. So this is what I'm getting at. So I'm leaving, and I got to drive from Glades Road to 595. And and the car, the one I'm driving is a diesel, and it's modified. It's got over 500 horsepower to the rear wheel torque. Mm-hmm. The engine's like 370, 340. And I'm just raping this car. I'm just raping it. I'm paddles, bam, bam, bam. And I've got my adrenaline going. And I'm just like, I need this.
Yeah.
I need this. I need to throw this car through turns. I need to. And when 10 minutes later, whatever it was, when I got off 595, the big sweepers coming down. And when I get to my neighborhood, I kind of look in the rearview mirror and see nobody's following me.
Yeah.
Get that guy. And I pull in, and the car's just crying, it's
smoking, yep.
And I was like, yeah, man. So you do need that.
Yeah.
If you've had it, if you've had it, you need it, You do. I get it.
We're very close to running out of time, and I knew this was going to happen, and I have more pages to go through. So I think this is going to be a multi-part with you if you're, open to coming back.
Sure.
One of the things that I do want to mention real quick, since we're talking about adrenaline and things like that, I wanted to ask you, and again, we have to wrap it up quickly. when you smell the race fuel, does it bring back those memories of back in the 80s, you racing? There was a particular moment in the book you mentioned. This is when I believe you got into a big accident.
Yeah.
I think it might have been Mid Ohio,
No,
where you were airlifted.
IRP, yeah.
You were airlifted.
I was ambulance, not airlift, but it was
Okay.
It was right around the corner from Indianapolis Motor Speed.
So there's a part in the book where you talked about you're doing everything right, and I think you were in first place.
yeah, I was going for the pole.
Yeah, you were in first place,
I had the pole.
and he smelled the smell of grass.
Fresh cut.
Oh,
cut
okay.
grass.
Oh, I mean, you would just assume the other type of grass
Yes,
based
that's
on
why
the previous
No,
conversation.
No,
I-
the kind
I
your
have to
dad cuts
clarify.
on
Right,
Sunday.
yeah.
I have to clarify. Yes, grass. Lawn. Just smelled it. Fresh cut grass. Comes around the corner. There's a car stalled, and you T-bone him.
Yeah.
When I read that, it reminded me that our senses when we're driving on the racetrack, when we're racing,
So-
our senses are so heightened that I remember going through between 6 and 7 at Sebring, and I smelled the fresh cut grass. I remember just vividly. I'm like, just everything is so it's like a high.
Such a high. Danny Sullivan once said when he's going around Indy, he can smell the fried chicken. He can smell the fried chicken, and that's the thing that you can't explain to people. That stick and ball sports, you'll never understand. I mean, if you hit a baseball and you get a home run, that adrenaline's there for a couple seconds, but
Right.
but it's not the same adrenaline as being in a race car. Every part of your body. I mean, like I said, when you're going through the kink or you're going through a white knuckle turn, every track
Yeah.
has one, and you just like, I remember one time a guy going on to the racetrack. We were Skip Barber, had different classes, and he goes, "I'm going to win this race or die trying." And we're all like, "No, wait!"
Right. Yeah.
And don't be. But that's what your mindset is. You just got to go out there. You cannot go out there and think you're going to win. You're going to push the car to the ultimate limit. You want to be the fastest person at the track, and your senses are so heightened. Like you said, like you smell. I remember going through that turn. It was a blind right-hander, and I go, smell. And your mind's in split second. It's not happening in 3 seconds. It's happening 1/1000th of a second, and you're like, that reminds me of Sunday afternoon. I never put. The card went off.
Right,
the
why
track.
it smells
right.
like.
Right. And then as soon as I
that would have
looked
been
out,
better, right?
the car
Oh,
comes
right. It
flying
smells
right
like
in front.
grass. I wonder why. Oh, it's
Yeah.
probably because there's grass in the air. Because right.
But I'm also going for the pole, and I was going against the factory team, Crosley team. They'd flown the driver in, and the car from Ireland or wherever they built it, and it was me and him. And I'm like, I'm not gonna. And I had the Swift DB1, which was the premier car, the first one. It was Michael Andretti. No, what's his son? Jeff Andretti had owned it. R.K. Smith had owned it, who was a famous. But Andretti owned it, and I got it from Brayton. So it came from it was a badass car. It was sorted out, and I wanted the pole, and I wasn't going to lose to a factory test driver flown in from Ireland. The guy was the test driver.
Yeah. That story was fantastic. Again, just to plug your book, One Step Over the Line.
You know what? I'll have to autograph it for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Or a check if you have a blank one.
So
More valuable.
the book will be fine. So we're going to jump into our last segment, which is the rapid fire question segment. We have under 10 minutes, so these are going to have to be really quick and snappy. Are you ready?
Yep.
Here we go. What gave you a bigger rush, crossing the finish line or crossing the Gulf with 600 pounds of weed?
Oh, the finish line.
Really?
It meant more to me.
Okay, yes, that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
All right, number
And
2.
it happens faster. That's a tough one. Go ahead. That's a tough one.
What's scarier, turn 11 at Road Atlanta or landing a plane on a dirt strip in the dark?
So I've never raced at Road Atlanta. I've been there, but they're both scary. Any white knuckle turn, that turn, like you're talking about the downhill at Road
Yes.
Atlanta. And that's a tough one. I think you're both at the heightened.
Really?
The difference between landing a plane is you're done in about 5 minutes. In a race car, that's coming back in about
Yes,
2 minutes.
you do it
You're
over
gonna
and over
do it again and again and again. So I'd say that white knuckle turns are always, they're really important. They keep you going.
All right, number 3. If adrenaline was a drug, how would you rate racing versus smuggling on a scale from 1 to 10?
Oh man, they're both at 10.
Really?
Oh hell yeah. Oh hell yeah.
You're just an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah, man.
All right, number 4. What burned more cash, racing tires or cocaine habits?
Cocaine habit.
Not even close, I imagine.
But I didn't have to pay for my cocaine. That was the thing. I actually owned it. So
It was just lost opportunity.
lost profit.
Opportunity
There you go.
lost.
And when you have 10 kilos of coke, like I said, you don't run out.
Number 5, did you ever consider naming your race team Blow Racing, or was that too on the nose?
Yeah, no, that wasn't a good idea. You know?
Sounds like having your bail bondsman as your sponsor is probably pushing it
enough.
about as
Yeah,
it's
enough.
about as much
Yeah,
as we want to
enough.
do.
All right, number 6. How much of the paddock do you think was financed by the drug trade? This is back in the 80s. 10%, 50%?
I would say, depending on what series, like IndyCar, probably not, but IMSA was probably 20, 30%. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Because, everybody was running drugs. I know, I can bring in 3 other guys here that were drug runners in South Florida that I know personally.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And were any of them? I know we're short on time. Any experience with powerboat racing? Because I know that it was prevalent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
well,
drugs was prevalent in the powerboat
yeah.
racing.
So Randy Lanier, who was one of the fastest, best race car drivers in Florida. I mean, he came in Rookie of the Year at Indy, 10th at Indy, won the IMSA championship. His partner was Ben Kramer, and Ben Kramer ran the Apache powerboats. And so there was big tie-in.
I think that those two worlds kind of go hand in
Very
hand.
close.
There was other guys. I can't think of their names right now, but it's a complete,
Intertwined.
mesh. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
All right, number 7. Did you ever feel like the good guy in your own movie?
Yeah. I didn't think I was the bad guy. As a matter of fact, in the book, I say that when if I went to the dark side and became a DEA agent, and my older brother, who's very straight, says, "You realize you were on the dark side when you were selling
Yes,
drugs. And
you were
became
never the good guy."
Yeah, right. I was never the good guy. But I think turning my life around and getting out of it, I'm still friends with the arresting officer and my DEA handler, and
good.
we're still friends today. So I used to call him every year and tell him during Christmas, I'm doing the right thing, I'm working hard, I'm staying straight.
I would imagine not a lot of guys that went in with, through your life or similar, like come out, like you did.
I know actually a lot of the we all came from good families. We all came from middle-class
I
families.
think that helps.
Yeah, I have friends whose dads were police officers, mailmen. We weren't the inner city kids, but it's just I say if you raise somebody right, they might go right. If you raise a kid right and teach them values, they might go right, they might go left, but eventually they'll find center.
Sure.
And I've seen a lot of guys do that and become very successful. So.
All right, number 8. Looking back, what do you think you were really chasing? Money, adrenaline, or meaning?
So when you start selling drugs in high school, you're the cool guy, right? And we were making money.
Yeah.
But money was always the driver,
Okay.
I wanted to also climb the ladder. I mean, I was raised with, good, hardworking German immigrant work ethic of work hard, do good, become successful. So I was just trying to be the best drug person I could be. I was going to be a hero. I wanted to climb the drug dealing ladder, the drug smuggling ladder, and be, the biggest, but money was the ultimate goal, and excitement, and adrenaline, excitement, and money.
Gotcha. All right. Number 9. Do you believe the war on drugs made things better or worse?
1,000% worse.
Yeah.
1,000%.
You noted that in the book.
Yeah, listen, the mob would never own Vegas and be what they are today if it wasn't prohibition, right? Us little young kids in South Florida that could have been doctors, lawyers, politicians, whatever, we gotten hooked up on drugs because the more you crush drugs, when you take something that people want and you take it away from them, you're just raising the value, right? You're not going to stop people. They're blow up every boat you want in the Caribbean right now and all that. There's another guy going to get on the boat. Right. They're just going to keep coming because they don't believe it's. Here's the other thing about, real quick, racing and drug smuggling and drug running have the same one thing. It's never going to happen to me. When you see a guy and you're driving next to him and his car catches on fire, that's not going to happen to me. When some guy dies in a plane crash in Colombia or gets murdered in a drug deal in New York or gets busted with 10,000 pounds, it's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
And that's the way you justify that.
All right, last question. If you could go back and give 18-year-old Ken one sentence of advice, what would it be?
Don't do this.
Sounds like it was already too late at 18. Maybe at 14 you had to have that conversation with little Ken.
Right.
Maybe
but,
10.
But then I wouldn't have raced. No, I really, 13 is when I smoked my first joint. And again, back in those days, if you smoked a joint, sold a joint, gave a joint away, and you couldn't get a joint without buying it illegally, so you created the business, right? If they would have said it's all legal, there's so much marijuana moving around right now, and it's all legal. So it's I just think if you put up a wall and you say don't do it, if you tell a kid don't do it, he's going to do it. What's the best way? If you tell some girl, don't go out with that guy, he's a jerk, right? You see her at the football game with the guy the next weekend, right? That's my thinking, you know.
All right, Ken, listen, we are out of time. It's been fantastic having you. This is definitely going to be part one of probably a multi-part series. Definitely pick up Ken's book, One Step Over the Line. It was a fantastic read. Are you open to coming back?
Yeah.
We'd love to continue this conversation with you.
We're talking racing, we're talking adrenaline. I'm coming.
Hell yeah. All right. So we're going to skip the guest challenge this time around. We're going to leave it for the next time. All right, Ken, remember, everything interesting happens off the racing line. See you guys next time.
Thank you, guys.
Everything interesting happens off the racing line.